Thunk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and I've seen a few, but I've certainly seen this one.
And it's our first real episode. So, of course, we're starting off with the OG, the original Godzilla, also known as Gojira, and at one point, Godzilla, the uncut Japanese original, which is, I think, how you can find it on Pluto TV right now to differentiate it, to make sure that people don't accidentally watch the American cut. One thing that I did not mention in our introduction episode that came out last week is titles of movies is going to be kind of a conversation every week. Not so much for this, or not every week. It's going to be kind of a conversation for every month, because not so much with this one, but a lot of movies go by like multiple names depending on how it's translated. Because sometimes it's like a direct translation of the Japanese. Sometimes the international like releases will just change the name on a whim. Sometimes America will go by something different. Sometimes there's a different cut of it. So that'll be something to look forward to every time, because that does kind of affect how you might want to look up the movies. They all go by different names, interestingly.
Yeah, that makes more sense the more I think about it.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, the original Godzilla, it was released in Japan on November 3rd, 1954, which has since become Godzilla Day. So, November 3rd, it's coming up real soon. We'll be celebrating Godzilla's B-Day then. This movie was directed by Ishirō Honda and produced and co-created by Tomoyuki Tanaka, who we both talked about significantly in our introduction episode. So if you have not listened to that, definitely go back and kind of hear about some of the initial creation of Godzilla and how they were involved. And also for this movie, story by Shigeru Kayama, who wrote the treatment for this movie. I'll talk a little bit about his treatment and the differences from it, because it's actually very fun. The screenplay for this movie was Takeo Murata and Ishirō Honda, who of course also directed it. And just calling it out because it's very important, the special effects were by Eiji Tsuburaya, who, again, we talked about him a lot last week because he is the inventor of Suitmation and all the amazing, really cool effects you see in this movie. Yes. So obviously this could potentially be a very hefty conversation. I don't really know where this is all going to go. Cause this is honestly kind of an intimidating one to start with. Cause this is obviously the movie that has been talked about ad nauseum for 70 years now. So, we have plenty of places we can go, but starting off, Doug, obviously our premise for this podcast is you haven't seen many Godzilla movies, but this is one that you believed you had seen before, right?
I feel like this is the one that I would have watched in that aforementioned, like environmental disasters, in horror movie or in horror and sci-fi movies class that I took. Cause like, why else would we have watched a different Godzilla movie than this one? And the music was very familiar. And there were certain things about it, like plot points or like pieces of it that were very familiar. But there were also things that I didn't remember. So I feel okay saying that this is one that I had seen before. But it would have been once, and it would have been maybe 15 years ago.
Sure.
In a 4-hour long class.
Right. And it's like, that's a specific context that you're like watching a movie in. I mean, like, I guess not that different from a podcast because you're like using your brain for it, but like, it is still different, like kind of being forced to watch it for a class and then having to like, you were looking at it through a very particular worksheets. Yeah. And you're looking at it through a very particular lens and stuff. Yeah. So like watching it as a movie, then to talk about it as a movie, like that is still, it's still a different lens through which to engage a movie with.
Yeah.
You know,
it's actually really strange because basically what we would do in that class is focus almost entirely on the people and how they reacted to things, not necessarily the monster or the relationships that the people had to the situation. So you're right. It is actually like a very, very different context now that I think about it. And I feel like a lot of the things that probably I didn't remember were the things that would have been sort of left to the side in a class like that. Like, you know, our sort of like main couple and their relation to the science and sort of, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That said, though, like it is interesting because that gives you a particular perspective because you are coming at this movie already fully aware of how much it, imagery was meant to like emulate real world, destruction and devastating events that actually happen and stuff like that. And I think that a thing that I find so interesting about this movie is that despite it having been talked about for so long and for being a part of culture for so long, and I think everyone generally knows like the original Godzilla movie is like serious and dark and it's an atomic weapons allegory. People know that, but I think even all that said, people still are surprised when they watch it to realize just how dark and bleak and melancholy and like sad that it is.
Sure.
Like I pitched this for my book club, I think about a year ago. And I had a friend who watched it, I think for the first time not too long ago. And in both cases, they were like surprised. Like I did not, like I knew that the movie was like kind of dark, but I didn't realize it was like this, I think people will hear us say it is a heavy movie, and I think don't realize like how harrowing it actually is until they watch it, which is just so fascinating to me given how much of a piece of culture that it is,
Yeah, I think it's the difference between it, people recognizing that a story can be a commentary versus like a story being at its core about the thing it is commenting on. This movie is like you simply cannot separate the context, the commentary, or the history from this movie in the way that sometimes you can watch a sci-fi or monster or horror movie and say like, oh, it seems like it was a metaphor. Like this really isn't like a metaphor. No. Like this isn't a metaphor. This just is about what it's talking about.
Right. It's what's so interesting about it. I think like it is something that is like it's very on the nose with what it's saying. Like you can't miss it. Like that, how political this movie is. And it's all in a way that like no other Godzilla movie afterwards is like this. Like this is kind of a piece with itself,
Yeah.
I mean, and we'll explore it as we go through it, but I think part of it is sort of like one of the reasons they think that it has lasted so long as a franchise is because it just, they had to pivot in different directions, right? And so you get so many movies different kinds. And even when they return to, a darker, more tragic kind of horror movie, it's still not the same because this movie is like only 9 years removed from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like that time is so specific to when it's being made that no other movie can ever emulate exactly what it's doing just because of what everyone involved with the movie was actively going through still,
Right. It can't be understated that this is within a decade of those bombings and within a couple years of like U.S. occupation of Japan. Yeah. Because that was the thing that I was wondering watching the movie. I was like, wait, how long did the U.S. occupy this place? And this would have been a couple years after, theoretically, we left, which I think is an important detail as well.
Yeah. And well, yeah. So actually, there's two different directions that go into that are both the sort of context for this movie before we even really talk about the content of it, I feel like. So one, and I think the simpler conversation, you mentioned the American occupation, and I think a whole reason that this movie is able to get made at all is because the American occupation is lifted, just before this movie comes out. During the American occupation, a lot, it wasn't dissimilar to a lot of what was happening with Hollywood as well, where there was just tons of rules kind of put and restrictions put down on what filmmakers could make, right? So nothing really subversive or groundbreaking could be made in the Japanese film industry while America was occupying, and especially nothing close to criticizing anything remotely American could be made either. So
I'm sorry, you want to talk about how we bombed you? Nope.
Right.
You want to talk about the consequences of that and explore the morality of that? No.
Exactly. So there's a period, it's between 1945 and 1952 that occupation is happening. So that's quite a while for no really, subversive movies to be made. Despite having happened just after a massive world war, after these horrific bombings on Japanese cities had happened that radically changed like their entire culture, like just changed the progression of history going forward forever. And they couldn't create art that was really reflecting that or like helping them process that. Right. And so what ends up happening is that by the time that the American occupation ends and those restrictions are lifted, filmmakers are kind of able to just like unleash all of that subversive and dark material like on it. And so like in a way, like this movie ends up being like sort of the filmmaker and on the audience too, being able to kind of like a delayed response to things that happened a little less than a decade earlier, finally being able to really process the actual feeling and what they were actually feeling in this post-war time, you know?
And this is like not at all like a equal comparison or an equal type, like the circumstances are just totally different. But as far as like the idea of being able or not being able to make art in order to cope with something massively like and collectively traumatizing, like imagine people not being able to do any of the writing or art that was happening in real time during like pandemic lockdowns. Like imagine having to wait 9 years to process any of that externally or with anybody else. Like it's just it's like a wild thing to think about because it was happening in real time, and then this couldn't happen. It like wasn't allowed to happen.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah, and I think you also have this like context for like what was happening in America with like similar types of movies that there would also be, you know, we talked a little bit about like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms last week in our introduction episode. Like that's a movie about a monster that's awakened by an atomic bomb. Pretty much any monster movie in America is similar to Godzilla, like a reaction to nuclear weapons, right? Because nuclear radiation is like this new thing that everyone is hyper aware of and no one knows what the consequences in the long term are really going to be. So a bunch of monster movies come out about them. But the thing with American monster movies is that like because of America's
responsibility
because of America having like won the World War, like all of those movies are very optimistic, and it's just and there's no ambiguity. Like even the ambiguity that you had seen in King Kong, that shit's gone in all of those American monster movies because it's like atomic weapons, they created a monster and they're evil, and guess what? The exceptionalism of the American military and scientists stopped them and won because we're great, and that's it. Like
so
that's
not
where it
the
stops.
Responsibility.
Right. No, yeah.
Just simply the heroism.
Exactly. And so
Gross.
and I think like I don't know that Godzilla was intentionally a reaction to that exactly, but sure. I do think when you compare the two, it makes it clear like what was happening in America culturally and how Americans were responding to the war that had just happened and how Japan was responding to the war that had just happened, being on the side that lost, but more specifically having been just like kind of like having had two cities just completely decimated, like horrifically so in ways that have never been seen on the history of the planet before, you know.
Horrifically so in such a way that the whole world was just like, never,
right?
No, don't do that ever again.
Right.
Like really unfathomable.
So like, that's the thing that makes it so fucking hard to like have the context for it, because I keep thinking of like we just don't have a comparison. Like
no
I was
one
trying
else
to think
does.
of like no one does, and I think that's what makes this movie feel so unique, and it's been so unreplicable ever since. Like as many movies have tried to do something similar, it was just sort of like the perfect fusion of all of these feelings that could only come from people who have just gone through something so specific to them that no one else in the history of the planet has gone through. Yeah. The other side of that kind of, also related to it is that one of the things that, really prompts this kind of delayed response to, the nuclear weapons conversation is the Lucky Dragon disaster.
Oh.
Do you even know what this is? Have you ever even heard of this?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar.
it is so imperative to the creation of this movie. So this it was in March of 54. The U.S. performed a hydrogen bomb test at the Bikini Atoll near the Marshall Islands in the South Pacific. I don't really know geography, so I don't have like great context for exactly where that is.
Sure.
But either way, a Japanese fishing vessel, the Lucky Dragon number 5 is the translated name. It got too close to the blast, so its entire crew, all the fish they caught were irradiated with nuclear fallout. And the problem was that disaster did not get reported in the media for like 2 weeks. So by the time the men had arrived, have returned home, they returned home not really knowing exactly what had happened, full on radiation sickness, and a lot of their catch had already been sent to the markets for public consumption.
Oh shit.
Now, my understanding is that like most of the fish did get like recalled. So it wasn't like, it could have been a worse national tragedy than it was. But the sort of like ridiculously close call and the fact that like some of the fish did get out into the public, like this irradiated fish that was only irradiated because of like United States performing nuclear tests, like that was alarming and kind of a wake up call and just reignited all of these fears of nuclear weapons that again, they hadn't really been able to like process over the last 9 years because the people who bombed them were occupying their country. So, so that idea is what really sparks it with Tanaka specifically of being like this, you know, that feels like something we can really like kind of hone in on for this monster movie we want to do.
Sure.
And you know, and that gets them to just delve fully into, you know, the idea of nuclear weapons and the sort of unfathomable impact and the way that like the entire world has changed just by their invention.
Yeah.
And I mean, like when you watch the movie, like the beginning, the you know, it starts off with like fishing boats getting down by Godzilla. One of the criticisms of the movie at the time was that people felt like it was too on the nose and too soon and kind of exploitative because of that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like, you know, and I guess if you think about it, like people, you mentioned like the pandemic, anyone who was like making movies about the pandemic,
conversation.
People scoffed at them, right?
I mean, there's an entire generation of television that is going to be defined by whether the in-universe people, like whether the pandemic happened in the universe of that TV show or not. Like there's an entire several years and then forever moving forward affected by that exact conversation.
Right. And I think like another thing that I was thinking of is like 9/11 as well, right? Like again, it's a very different scenario, but I think for being just like basic ass Americans, like probably a big cultural moment and touchstone that was also a national tragedy. Like that's the closest comparison that we in our generation can have. And that's sort of the same thing too, where I think it's sort of like you can look back and there were so many fucking weird responses to 9/11. You know, and it's like, I think that like I don't think anyone could ever really fully agree on like what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's too soon, when's it too soon, you know.
People are still having that conversation.
Right. So it totally makes sense that would be a conversation with this movie, and then you know, and when you watch it, like they sugarcoat nothing, which was also like very. That was a first for its time. Like there was no other movie before this had really directly like delved into this like particular anti-nuclear message from a Japanese perspective before so directly and like without sugarcoating anything, you know, which had to just like, for some people, I'm sure it was just like, finally someone's talking about it. And for other people, it's just sort of like, I can't believe they're talking about this, you know?
Was there, from what you know, was there much of a, like, as far as the filmmakers, like, did they experience firsthand that? Because I'm always fascinated by what I don't think happens really anymore, which is like the sort of violent and vehement reaction to filmmakers making controversial films. Like, people still make controversial films, but like they don't react the same way they did to The Exorcist or Cannibal Holocaust. You know what I mean? Or I'm guessing by your reaction, Godzilla.
Doug, I'm so glad you asked me that question because my very next little section of notes is entitled Filmmakers Connections to Tragedy.
Sure.
So yes. So Ishirō Honda, like I said, he's the director of the movie, co-wrote it. A lot of the movie's kind of anti-nuclear messaging really comes from him, like really kind of hammering that in, like elevating the original treatment to making it like, no, I want to truly dramatize like the devastating impact of atomic weapons and make the anti-nuclear message the heart of the movie. Like that really comes from him. So he had been an assistant director at Toho when he was drafted into the military in 1936. So he was involved in the military. I think, if I remember correctly, I think he was like a Buddhist. So like he was like, I think he was a very pacifist person and didn't really want to be involved with the military, but like, you know, he was drafted and I don't think he liked what he saw. In 1945, he was captured as a prisoner of war by the Chinese military in World War II and was there until Japan surrendered. Japan, of course, only surrendered because of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So like he's freed from imprisonment only because of something utterly horrific that happened, and on the way back home he passed through the ruins of Hiroshima and like saw those firsthand. Yeah, and he's been open like in several interviews that witnessing war and like seeing that aftermath and like seeing like the ruins of that like destruction just has never left him, and it informed a lot of his later work. Obviously Godzilla, but I think a lot of stuff that he's done forward just reflecting on that. Like, and so that, you know, that really is what led him on this movie to just being like, I want a physical representation of the horrific things I've experienced because I fucking hate war. And I think you even see it like this movie has kind of almost like a documentary style approach to it in some ways. And I, you know, so I think he was just sort of like in the same way that a lot of war reporting is sort of meant to like be like, you who aren't fighting in this war don't really see the horrors of it, so I'm going to show you what it really looks like. He kind of, I think, was trying to do that in his own way, even in this like fictional movie. You know?
I can definitely see that, even in just the way that certain like B-roll is utilized and like certain like the tone of certain scenes and the juxtaposition of tones of certain scenes. I definitely can see where some of that made its way in.
Yeah. And also Tsuburaya, you know, he did all the special effects in the movie. He also, his family narrowly avoided a massive napalming of Tokyo by the Allied forces. Yeah. And then I think I talked about this in our introduction episode, but like there's a period where he got blacklisted during the American occupation, just because of how good his like Pearl Harbor recreations were. Apparently like they were like, so you've got to be a spy. Like these are like too good. You must be a spy. So we're gonna blacklist you. But you know, luckily I think like everyone in the film industry and at Toho was like, spy or not, you're a fucking amazing special effects person. So we're going to kind of covertly hire you back. And then, you know, and then everything was fine for that. But yeah, I mean, all that's to say, like, I know at least those two, but probably even more people involved in the movie, like had very real, you know, I mean, it just happened.
Right.
Like, it was like less than a decade ago.
It feels like, how could you not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, you know, so like all of that is just at the heart and core of this movie. Like you were saying, just completely inseparable from it, you know, and I think that it makes this movie just so unique. Like obviously plenty of movies exist that are reactions to war or reactions to historical events and or allegories or whatever, but I don't know that I've ever seen one like this that like finds such a specific fusion of real world things and fantastical things and like acknowledges both of them at the same time. You know, like the fact that I think that it would be one thing to watch a movie where they don't mention nuclear weapons at all. It is just Godzilla is a metaphor for nuclear weapons because he causes destruction. But the fact that they name drop like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they talk directly about nuclear weapons, like everything that happened in our world has happened there too. It's just in this case, Godzilla also happens to exist in addition to that.
And I think acknowledging all of that and it being right there, I think should allow people to see that Godzilla itself like isn't the metaphor for nuclear war so much as it is the metaphor for the future with nuclear war as it's past. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that to me
consequences.
Right. It's the consequences. It is the answer to the question, what if we keep moving forward this way? Which is also asked directly in the movie. You know what I mean? So it's cool. I'm really glad that I mean, obviously we're rewatching this with like a very specific purpose, but I'm glad I rewatched it because, again, the context for why I was watching it in the first place is like so different than why I'm watching it now, which is just the entirety of it, you know? And this being the first one, it makes sense that this is going to recontextualize my entire understanding of Godzilla moving forward, which is really exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you say that because I mean, just saying like Godzilla is a metaphor for nuclear weapons, like that's like the log line for it, but like it's not really. Yeah, it's I mean, the thing is
represents
like
something a little bit more abstract than that.
Yeah, well, and I think too, I want to talk. One of the things I want to talk about in every episode of this podcast we do is like the version of Godzilla in each movie because that can vary, and it's like whether that's like the technical stuff. I want to talk about like the suit and everything, but also the character as well. And I think like that's the thing is like more than being a metaphor for nuclear weapons, like Godzilla, the character in this movie, is a victim of nuclear weapons specifically, right? Like the dude was literally hit with an atomic bomb, like that's, and it destroyed his home, just like what happens with, you know, in real life. It's just in this case, he was able to survive it. But what they do with it, and I'm curious if this is something that like clocked with you at all, but like his design, like the sort of craggly grooves and things that he has, it's not meant to look like scales. It's meant to emulate the keloid scars of bodies of people who survive nuclear fallout, essentially, like the burns and things.
No, not specifically. Like that didn't specifically, like that is not like it. I don't know that I saw it and was like immediately, hey, that's what that is. But what I did notice was that it was a much more craggly, sort of roughed up version, and I didn't know whether to take that as like just the consequence of it being roughed up in a general sense, right? Like I don't know that I knew the literal representation it's like inspired by, but that makes sense because that registered with me at least as a question. Like, does it look this way because this is all they were capable of doing, or does it look this way because they explicitly tell us that it has been disturbed and sort of inadvertently attacked, you know?
Yeah. No, it was very intentional. I mean, like, and you've seen Shin Godzilla, and like, you know, he has like the red tint. That's because they basically went even harder on the scarring to make it look more like burns, like in, you know, like actual like blood and stuff underneath it. Yeah. And that was very intentional with this Godzilla. And like, I don't know how much that necessarily, if you're just watching it for the first time, I don't know how much that necessarily comes across like until you really think about. But I think that like once you have that bit of information, I think it only like helps because like when you see this version of Godzilla through the lens of he is a victim just like humans are of atomic weapons, I think like you can kind of re-characterize like everything that he's doing in the movie, because it's just like he's just a dude that got hit by a bomb and lost his home and is just fucking wandering around and is too big for everything. And he doesn't like, he doesn't eat people. He eats trains, but he doesn't eat people. Like, and he doesn't start really like actually killing, like with seeming intention, like using his atomic breath until after he's already been shot at and like trapped with electrical pylons and stuff. Like it is a sympathetic creature in this movie, you know?
Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me. Like, it like, you know, not necessarily specific to this movie, but just that depictions of Godzilla would be at some point, whether in this one or future ones or scattered throughout, sympathetic versions of the character. What I find interesting when we talk about like the character of Godzilla is I am expecting that in future movies, Godzilla will be more of a focal character in sort of like the capital C character of the movie type of way than in this one. Because in this one, yes, he's definitely a victim. Yes, like definitely sympathetic when you think about it. But I do think this movie doesn't really challenge or direct you to focus on Godzilla as a character so much as the idea of like nuclear war has unleashed a monster, and here is the literal fucking monster, you know, that has been unleashed, you know. I'm guessing, I think, based on little bits and pieces I've seen, that Godzilla is more of a character in like both the focal way and the like what a character way than in this one, you know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like the movie Godzilla isn't really about Godzilla as a character very much.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, and I think that like, I think like it's interesting because one of the really common refrains about Godzilla movies, there's literally a TV tropes page for it that's like just here for Godzilla, and it's this idea that it's sort of like, well, Godzilla movies are fun, but I just watch them for the monsters and the human stuff is boring, which I think is like honestly doesn't really apply to like the majority of Godzilla movies. Like most of them, I think the human stories actually are interesting, unless the movies are really bad personally.
Because if you had asked me like predict, I would have been like, I bet you there are at least a bunch of them that are just for that, but I'm glad to hear that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure some people disagree with me, but like I tend to I feel like people treat it like every scene with a human is a total drag, and I'm like, I mean, if that's the case, then it's one of the bad movies. Like, if it's a good Godzilla movie, the human stories are interesting too. But I say that because I think that like this is one of those movies that it's sort of like the humans really truly are the focal point, and it's not like you're waiting for the boring human scenes to be over to get to the monster. Like Godzilla, I think is perfectly paced in his appearances through this movie. Like he pops up at very particular moments and is there for the right amount of time, like to progress the story further and for the characters to react to and take action one way or another. But the bulk of the movie is like a very human story about what these different people's relationships and how they're responding to Godzilla's existence going forward.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said all that, because I don't disagree with any of it. But at the same time, I also was surprised at how quote quickly Godzilla appeared in the movie, because of my current modern day film sort of brain is sort of like, I think, programmed to be like, oh, in the very first Godzilla movie, I bet you he doesn't show up until like 75% of the way in. Like, no, That's not how movies were. That's not how movies need to be. Like, Godzilla shows up maybe like 30 minutes into this movie, and the scenes are like they are just flying,
This movie fucking moves. It's like, I think, here's the thing about this movie is, and it almost feels weird to say, 'cause this movie it's so harrowing, and yet like when I put it, like whenever I have seen it so many times, and when I finish it, I'm like, I kind of want to just throw it on and watch it again. Like I can throw it on at any time, which is the thing that I usually only say for movies that are fun. But like this movie isn't fun. It's very sad and very harrowing, but it's very watchable. Like it is just perfectly edited. It's perfectly paced. Like it like we said, it's just fucking moves. And I think it became clear to me for two reasons. One, the American King of the Monsters cut, like there's plenty of criticisms people have for it, but one criticism that I have is that I think just by the scenes that they remove and then the scenes that they insert, it kind of throws off the balance that this movie has that I think is kind of perfect. And then, and as soon as that balance is thrown off, suddenly like that American cut of the movie is just kind of slow and boring, even with a lot of the same content, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But also like I watched 20,000 Beast from 20,000 Fathoms the other day. Cause I couldn't remember if I'd ever seen it before or not.
Yeah.
And it felt like, useful context to have for this. And I'm like, oh, I know why I don't remember if I've ever seen it before. It's because the majority of it's really, really boring, unfortunately. And that movie does kind of have the like just here for Godzilla thing, because it is truly like that monster is barely in the movie until the very end, and the monster fucking rules. It's amazing, best part of the movie. But the majority of that movie is just sort of like the human characters just being like, I think it exists, and then trying to convince people that it exists and no one believing them for like 90 minutes, and then the monster appears at the end. And it's just like it's just sort of like I do think that there is a careful chemistry you have to pull off to do a monster movie where the monster really isn't in it a lot. And I think this movie just really absolutely kills it.
I think it's
really nails it.
I think it's the easiest place for me to sort of make the claim that monster movies inherently cross over with horror storytelling. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, not every monster movie feels like a horror movie in the way that it is not necessarily meant to be like viscerally scary, I wouldn't say that, like, this movie is very scary and very horrifying, but I don't think it is meant to be presented in like a jump scare or make you walk away being like, wow, I was really scared during that one,
Right.
But it still, it does what a good horror movie does, which is like, ease you in and tease you with the monster without making it completely hidden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it sounds like the 20,000. What is that one called?
Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Got it. I keep wanting to say 20,000 Leagues, and I know that's not it. But the Beast from 20,000. Yeah, like it sounds like that does the sort of failure of horror movie thing, which is like, well, we don't want to show it too early when it's like, no, you can show it. You just have to sort of be smart about it. And this one is, right? Like there are some moments where Godzilla is not, they're not hiding Godzilla. Godzilla's right there on the screen, but it's just peeking up from the water. You know what I mean? Or it's just sort of like moving, or it's just traveling.
You see him
like you don't have to hide it. You just have to give us the taste.
When you just see his head pop up from behind the hills for the first time and then just roar, it's so good. Man.
Yeah.
Like it's like it almost kind of takes your breath away for a second, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you're right. Like there's a reason that I wanted to get this out in October. It's because like this one is a horror movie. Like it's, I would probably the only Godzilla movie that is just a legit horror movie, but it is a horror movie. Like
I would agree.
Visually, it is very dark. It really unsettles you for a lot of it. And it's not a happy movie and does not have a happy ending, you know?
No. And in just so many ways, it's shot like a good horror movie.
Oh, yes.
Like if God's, and I know it's not a slasher movie, but if Godzilla is your slasher, they're fucking nailing those shots. You know, they're nailing the killer shots. Again, victim sympathetic, but still in the way it's presented on screen.
Horror movie slashers can be sympathetic and still be scary killers too. You know, there you go. Yeah. God, I fucking love this movie so much. Let's talk about Godzilla's design. Just like when we talk about every version of Spider-Man on our Spider-Man podcast, I think the different designs for Godzilla, because I'm so excited for you to see some of these fucking wild swings for redesigns they do for Godzilla in some of these movies. This is obviously the OG. So a few things. There's like a different name for every suit, which is kind of fun. This one's called the Shodai suit is like the unofficial name for it. I think it's named, I believe, after one of the designers for it, if I'm remembering correctly. But for this one, just a few fun facts about it, because this was the first time they ever did it. So 2 suits were actually made for it. The first suit was way too heavy to perform in. So they did keep it, but basically just like divided it at the waist. So anytime you see close-ups of Godzilla's legs, like when it's stomping or anything, that's from the original suit, because I think it had that extra heft to it, so it would look good for foot shots. You know, it would do great on WikiFeet and everything. It's just
you beat me to it.
I saw the look on your face, and I'm like, I'm going to get there first. The suit that ended up being used still weighed like over 200 pounds. I think like 220 pounds is what it clocked in at.
I'm not shocked.
Yeah. The suit actor was Haruo Nakajima, who would go on to portray Godzilla in every subsequent film through 1972, which is a lot of movies.
Holy shit.
Yeah. The dude fucking loved it, despite how hard it seemed to be. Like you're wearing a fucking like 200 and almost 250 pound suit. Apparently the temperature got up to like 140 degrees in there at certain points. He could only move to a certain amount, and he had to like move at like extra speed, because what they did was film Godzilla with a high-speed camera to then slow it down in post to make it look like the size was more immense, you know?
Smart.
Right. But that meant that he had to like fucking move.
Yeah. Book it.
Yeah. But like, I mean...
question.
Yes.
Since we're talking about the temperature of the suit,
yeah.
I know that there is a lot of like fun practical effect magic happening here. And the irony of us doing Falling with Style and then doing this one is I know way more about like the intricacies of and behind the scenes of like computer animated special effects that people don't necessarily think about, and know like not that much about these kinds of special effects, you know? So like, was he... Okay, there are some times where the fire, I can guess how they're doing it because it's such a spectacular thing. But there are some moments where it literally looks like he's walking on a set where there is fire nearby. Are any of those shots real? Like, is he in this suit and also near fire?
Probably so. I think for some of them.
That's fucking wild.
Like there are some things where they definitely do composite it. Like, obviously, you know, where they have like basically they'll shoot
They're
like
literally
people running and then literally cut the film in half and then paste him on top
Those
of it.
shots fucking amaze me.
Yeah, like, some of them truly, like, you know, there's some stuff where it looks like it's a movie made in 1954, but there are some where it's just sort of like this. I like it. It looks real. Like, it looks fucking incredible.
I would argue that none of the moments that it, to me, quote, looked like a movie in 1954 were the ones that were composite shots like that.
I think
Anytime
so.
Godzilla was like composited against real people for scale, that all looked incredible.
It looks
and I think
really
part of it is really benefited by the fact that this is shot in black and white in a really dramatic way. Like, if we're talking about the Godzilla suit, it's actually kind of hard for me because they do, I don't know how much I'm going to say it's all intentional. Like, they could light movies just fine, but like so much of it is presented in a really dark way.
Oh yeah.
That like, and I didn't seek out like, you know, high res photos of the suit if it even exists anymore.
Oh yeah,
or like
they do.
look at like well lit photos of it. Like, all I've seen so far is just what is presented to the movie. So, like, it's like, as a character in the movie, as a presence in the movie, like, it's really intimidating and really sort of like dark and scary because of the circumstances, and just the way things are lit. I mean, the fact that there are things on fire, but the electricity's out, you know, like they really kind of like fuck with you in the way that this monster is presented. And it's so cool.
Yeah. Oh, there's
so it looks cool, but like, I'm sure it looks even cooler, or I should say cool in a different way when you get to like really analyze it. But it looks amazing on screen because of the way it's presented.
It really does. There's like the one shot when you just see Godzilla's silhouette amongst like the flames of the burning city. It's so fucking incredible. Like, and it's like, it's devastating when you see it, but it's also like fucking sick as hell at the same time, because it's just it's just so wild that they were able to pull it off, and it's so striking.
Yeah. And I think as far as design goes, like, I think now in 2023, or, you know, moving forward, whenever you watch this movie, like, a movie this old with practical effects, regardless of how good they are, I think you run the risk of being like, I've seen so many things that now this looks goofy. That never happens in this movie. That's what's so wild about it. Like, maybe fully lit, this is a, quote, goofier Godzilla design, because I know some of them are kind of goofy. And I know I can kind of tell, like, it's a bigger-eyed Godzilla, which I always do find a little bit funny, because I'm used to, like... I think some of this, like, you know, I've seen the 98 one and the 2014 one, you know? So, like, there's always a little bit of cartoonishness that I think could be goofy, except it's all just presented just so slickly that it never looks goofy. Yeah. It's really impressive.
The lighting really helps this one a lot. Absolutely.
So good.
I do think if you look up high-res images of like the suit, it still like has a really
looks
fucking cool looking
cool
suit. Like, I think they just had a really good design.
You said Shodai?
Shodai, yeah. And I will go and correct myself. The Shodai, it's actually simple. I think I'm thinking of another suit later. Shodai literally just means first generation in Japanese, so it's the first Godzilla.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, this is actually like a way less cartoonish suit than I kind of would have expected.
Yeah. Well, and there's multiple. There's another head that you see in the movie sometimes too, because there's the suit that he wears, and that's the one that you see the most. That looks really fucking rad as hell. There's also a hand puppet that they have. I think
I was wondering.
And I'll be curious, because I don't remember if it gets you if they do that in Godzilla Raids again or not. Like, I feel like this might be the only movie that utilizes like hand puppet stuff. It's like, I don't know how to, it's a French word. I don't know how to pronounce it. Like guignol, I think it's what it is. Guignol.
No idea.
But it's specifically that type of like French marionette you see in theater where they have like the giant head and like the little tiny arms. Like, oh sure. Yeah. It's basically what that kind of hand puppet. And like, so like, and that hand puppet does look like, I feel like when you're watching it for the first time and you're just in the movie, I don't know if you would necessarily like really pick up on it, but like if you compare the two, they look nothing like each other. They're like wildly, the eyes are completely different from each other. The head shape is totally different. And like and that's the times that sort of like, he does look a little bit like a Muppet when he's like chomping on stuff sometimes. I still fucking love it, because I think it's like really, it still just looks really cool.
I still stand by what I said, which is that the suit always looks fucking cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I kept trying to see, they were so smart. I kept trying to see, because We watch Power Rangers.
Oh,
we watch
sure.
other tokusatsu things. We've seen plenty of Suits.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out quite where the actor's head was and what he was seeing through, and you really can't tell in the movie itself. Like, I'm looking at a picture of the suit, and it's very obvious.
Yeah.
But you really can't tell when you're watching the movie.
Yeah.
And, like, you shouldn't. I mean, these are filmmakers, but I was wondering, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I wonder if, like, because they, again, listen to our introduction episode from last week if you haven't yet. But, like, one of the things we talked about there is, like, the whole reason they invented the suitmation concept of a guy in a rubber suit was because, like, they wanted to do stop motion and it would just take too long. So I feel like I have to imagine they were just like, Tsuburaya especially was sort of like, if I'm going to do this, I have to fucking get it right. And like, so I think that they were probably paying attention to every possible detail to sort of like, we need to make sure that people don't see where the guy is seeing out of. So if we can't physically cover that, then we've got to make sure it's lit in a way.
We got to relight the
covered.
set.
Right. Right. So I think that they were probably very hypersensitive of making sure that things always looked as good as they could, you know?
Yeah. Also, just tonally, you want to make sure that you don't see that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The acting wise, the only other thing that I have for Nakajima is like when he was deciding how to act as Godzilla. I think this is so fucking cool. Like, he was observing animals, especially like an Indian elephant that I think was at like a zoo or park in Tokyo, and was sort of like focusing on exactly how an elephant would move with like a lot of heft, and specifically the way that like each foot would come to a complete rest on the ground before it moved again, which instantly like projects this idea of like strength and sort of an illusion of size, because like you have to have heft when you press that foot all the way down because I mean, I imagine like if you
need that stability, baby, before you can get that next foot up.
And I think like probably if you watch like how humans walk, like our feet are, preparing to move up as soon as the other one hits the ground, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think he also paid a lot of attention to the arm motions of bears and the head movements of birds, which is fun.
Interesting.
And combine all those. And I think there's something too, I don't think I have it in my notes, but like the way his arms like aren't, like he kind of made it a point to like not really extend his arms very much. Like he probably had a hard time doing it anyway. I think he like literally
could he even?
Right. So maybe it was just like couldn't even, but I think I think a thing to look out for in future Godzilla movies when he does become, more animated and stuff is like moving more like a person versus this one where like his arms are, probably more like a T-Rex's arms, like always a little bit keeping close to his chest the whole time.
That's kind of like my image of Godzilla. So I'll be curious to see ones that become more mobile, like I know the exception to the ones I've seen is the 98 American movie, which is just a completely different creature.
Yeah.
But like my general image of Godzilla is a more dinosaur T-Rex like proportioned one that's just like real chubby.
Yeah. Last couple of things before we can like talk about some of the movie plot and stuff, just about Godzilla specifically. I just like this quote from Ishirō Honda that he has that I think is like so good. It's very simple, but it just says, monsters are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. That is their tragedy. I find that so beautiful.
I feel like I've seen that somewhere before. Maybe you've tweeted it.
Probably so. It's just, I think it's a really good like ethos for how he as a director was and storyteller was really like approaching Godzilla as this character that it's sort of like, we talked about it already, but like he is a victim himself. He is meant to be a tragic character. But what do you think of his atomic breath? The fact it's like first time we see his atomic breath.
It's funny because I know he can do that. And I, for some reason, just like wasn't expecting it. I don't know if I like not consciously, right? It's not like I went into the movie being like, oh, I bet you we won't see it this time around. But when it happened, I was like, oh shit, that's right. Like he can do that. Like I was really excited. They hold off long enough, I guess, for you to be like sucked in and sort of forget. And then when you do finally see it, it's really effective and like not overdone. Like it really is presented as like breath that melts as opposed to like I breathe fire.
Yeah. It's like if you didn't know that Godzilla had atomic breath, it would come out of fucking nowhere. And I think about how like horrifying that must have been if you're in theaters when it's first coming out, not really knowing what you're getting into, and you're seeing the scary ass monster who's already caused all this destruction and like already doesn't seem like he can be stopped, and then it just like ups the ante by suddenly melting things by breathing on them.
This is honestly, I feel like, the most effective thing you can do with a giant monster, or even just an intimidatingly large monster. It doesn't even have to be kaiju category, right? It could literally just be, like a large alien that's unfamiliar to you. Revealing at some point that it can just do something that you're like, I already was fucked. I was already fucked. And it has another head, or it breathes fire, or also poison barbs. Like, there's something that's always effective about that, you know? Yeah. If you hold off long enough to let people already be scared, it really, like, that's the despair moment where you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't overdo it. Like, he uses it a couple of times, but he only needs to because it's enough to set the whole fucking city on fire. Like, that makes it scary enough, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is like a sort of like hopeless sort of scenario when that happens, because it sets the whole city on fire, and he was already destroying the city, you know?
Yeah.
Like, now we can't even really run or hide.
Right. Like, right. Yeah. God, it's such a smart choice. And I think, it also just differentiates him from just being their version of a dinosaur too. Cause like that is his superpower, in addition to being indestructible, I guess.
You know what about it did surprise me?
Mm-hmm.
Was that I wasn't actively not expecting his spines in this movie, or whatever. I don't know if there's an official term for those.
I think they're just called spines. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting his spines to glow in this in the way that I'd seen that happen in other ones. I assumed that had been added later with advances in special effects. But no, like that, I was pleasantly surprised to see it here.
It looks cool.
And like notably so.
Yeah, like I don't know exactly how they do that in 1954. Like if it's like a rotoscope thing or like an underlighting kind of thing. But either way, like, it looks cool as hell. Cause it's like, it's kind of subtle too, because this movie is so visually dark. Like, it is just sort of like, you just see this sort of glowing outline around his spines right before
it's subtle, but you can't miss it.
Sure.
Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's extremely effective and sort of, it's like, it is part of the sort of like, not necessarily guttural atomic breath and maybe some other versions, maybe one of the ones that I've seen before. But it still adds to the sort of full body experience of him using his atomic breath.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Cool shit. You mentioned the music earlier and feeling that memorable. Yeah. The music, Akira Ifukube, he is a fucking cool ass dude. And he's an amazing composer. He does end up, like, he will pop up a lot. He doesn't compose every Godzilla movie, obviously, but he sort of does like off and on movies up through 95. So
wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
What I find
that dude was working on Godzilla music for 50 years, 40 years.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, and when you see what his last movie is and his like last piece of music for it, oh my God. He's, I mean, probably one of, if not my favorite composer. And the thing is, like, what I find really interesting about Godzilla in its relationship with music is like much of the music that you hear in this movie, you're going to hear over and over again across multiple movies, multiple continuities, and even in like American, like the Monsterverse uses some of these pieces of music sometimes.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
And it feels like, I don't feel like that ever gets done, right? Because like you think like iconic scores where there are like multiple iterations of characters, like Superman, the John Williams Superman score is so iconic, so linked to him. But like when there are new Superman movies, like Man of Steel isn't using the John Williams score. Superman TV shows aren't using the John Williams score. But yeah, with Godzilla, like multiple Godzilla cartoons and like anime and other movies are using that a lot of pieces of like the Godzilla theme is used in so many movies.
Yeah, the only things I can think of off the top of my head, like very definitively is like Star Wars has kept pieces of that score and reworked pieces of that. Like,
but
there are themes that will continue to sort of happen, and like Halloween, obviously.
But well, I guess Halloween makes sense because even as a good comparison, because there's been multiple Halloween continuities and reboots, and still do. I think
that's a good. I
one.
see what you're saying.
But Star Wars,
yeah.
it's always in the same universe. Like Godzilla has rebooted multiple times and has plenty of parallel timelines and stuff. Like in the '98 movie is really the only time where it's just sort of like, what if we just didn't use any of that music? Like,
gotcha.
to one extent or another, there's some motif or reference to a Godzilla movie that existed, usually this one specifically. Like there's like multiple.
Gotcha. So then, Halloween is the better example. I thought that was the weaker example, but it is the better example because even in like the Rob Zombie ones, you're still getting Halloween music, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, and the idea that this was like over 70 years that they're still using like that music. So like the things that you'll hear the most, like the Godzilla. Okay, this is actually interesting. So like what becomes Godzilla's theme song, like the Godzilla March is like what it becomes to be known as. That's the music that you hear when the credits start rolling at the very beginning of the movie. They're like dun 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 dun. You'll hear a piece of that in our podcast theme song.
Hey,
that was originally intended as like the military march. Like that wasn't intended to be Godzilla's theme, but I think because it's the opening sequence of the Godzilla movie uses that song, people associate that with them. And also like it's kind of a heroic piece of music. So then when you see like good Godzillas and hero Godzillas in the future, that heroic piece of music kind of works for him later on. So that kind of becomes his theme. But there's also like that sort of like really dark, the dark theme that's playing when Godzilla first comes to shore on Tokyo for the first time. There's like a really like dark, like dun 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 kind of song. Like that gets replayed in many movies. And then the piece of music that's played when he like turns into bones at the end of the movie, like that you also will hear. Dude. We will talk about that. You also hear that in like many movies. So like there's multiple themes that you hear from this, and it's just so funny. Like when you watch through all of them and then go back to this one, it's just sort of like, I recognize that piece of music, recognize that piece of music, recognize that piece of music, and like it's just so fucking cool. And it gets tweaked and stuff in the future, but like the idea that like these pieces of these songs were like so perfect when they were created in the first place that they could just be using ad nauseum. It's just, I love that. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. This is just a fun fact because I just think it's really interesting. Ifukube, he's such a funny guy because I feel like his whole relationship with music is like, he for some reason really just did not want to be a full-time composer, but he was just too good at it and the universe would not let him do anything else. Like he like would like win a bunch of awards when he was like growing up for his music, but he was sort of like, I kind of want to study forestry, and went to school for that, and like got to school, like I got a job like in forestry, and be like, I'll just like make music on the side, and like that music on the side kept winning awards and getting him noticed and stuff. And then eventually he like actually got like an injury with his forestry job that like to the point where he wouldn't be able to do that job anymore. So it was literally universe being like, dude, come the fuck on, like stop with this bullshit, make the goddamn music. That's what you're good at. That's what everyone wants you to do.
Yeah. Damn, dude.
And so by the time he ended up working on Godzilla, he like had already become a really renowned composer. Like, and people even, I think when he was approached to do the score for this movie, like his, other people were sort of like, dude, don't do a fucking monster movie. Like, don't, like, you're too good for that. And he was just like, no, I'm going to try it out. And I think
he's like, perfect then.
Yeah. And
maybe I won't win awards for this one. I wish I were accidentally an artistic genius. Could quote, like, actively sabotage my career and accidentally succeed at that too.
It's so funny. But I think that's one reason why, like, like if you watch other monster movies that kind of come out around this time, there is something about like, action movie kinds of scores that this movie does not have. Like there's a lot of gravitas to like all the music in this movie. Like it's very orchestral. I think that like some of the stuff that Ifukube had done was like stuff that would be used for military marches. Like there's like a famous story where One of his marches was used by General Douglas MacArthur when he came to Japan to formalize the Japanese surrender, which like,
okay,
that's weird, but okay. That couldn't have been a fun experience to hear your music in that context. But like, if you think about like military marches and then like what you hear in this movie, like I think there is you can sort of see the through line there. And I do think that like that's a really important part too, because suddenly I think that this movie would be very different if everything was the same except for the score, and the score was just a little bit more actiony and was less somber. I think that would radically change the entire tone of the movie, and I don't think the chemistry of what makes the movie work would exist.
Well, I think it would have been an element that was overdone, and I feel like one of the things I've praised a couple times so far is that they practiced restraint on a lot of things that I feel like lesser filmmakers might not have.
Yeah.
Like they don't overdo their special effects. They use them correctly. They don't overdo, the presence of Godzilla. They sort of allow him to be there exactly as much as he needs to be. They don't overdo the music. It is like present when it needs to be and only to the degree that it needs to be. So it like hits exactly right,
Yeah.
And you mentioned that like this movie almost has a documentary feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you overdid the music, a lot of that would sort of be lost. And I feel like some of that military music only supports some of those scenes that sort of feel right out of reality,
Yeah.
So if you replaced that with something else, it just would have taken, I don't know, it would have felt more like a fictional space.
I love that. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, absolutely. He also did the sound effects, which this is something that I didn't really know, is that like, in Hollywood, it's always been really common for like the composers of music and sound effects people to be two different departments. And that wasn't really the case.
Yeah, I would expect that.
That wasn't really the case in Japan. Like it was like, if you do the music, you do everything. So he did sound effects too. So he created the Screonk. He created Godzilla's roar.
Yeah. Tell me about it. What is it? What is it?
It's really simple. It's like he created it by taking let's see if this makes sense. A resin coated glove, rubbing it along loosened strings of a contrabass, and then slowing that sound down in post production.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I pictured it. Yeah. That's fascinating.
It's
Holy
wild.
crap.
Like, how do you even come up with that? Because if you like, we're so used
Foley
to
artists just amaze me.
Yeah,
because it's like the shit that you watch them do. You're like, how is that a meatball falling on the floor? And it's like, like I don't know. It's wild.
Well,
it's just, I don't know.
And this it doesn't sound like anything. Like, I guess the closest comparison that I can make is like, it's like a variation of like an elephant trumpet, I guess.
The closest thing I can think it resembles is an elephant.
And
I don't know
really
any other
like
thing that sounds even close. No, I mean, you can tell it's not an elephant, but if you had to compare it to something, it's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. And what's funny too
is just so weird.
Yeah.
But cool and unsettling.
It's very unsettling. And it's like, and I think like knowing how that sound was made, I think for one, because it's such a fucking weird thing, is like a resin coated glove. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, but I think like knowing how it was made doesn't make the sound feel any less, like it doesn't lose the power. Even like, sometimes like when how the sausage was made, like suddenly it's not as magical. I think
you can't unhear what you now know that thing is.
Right.
But this is like so foreign and wild that it's like,
yeah, I don't think it's the case this time, because I will never be able to hear Godzilla's roar and hear the Screonk and like my first thought will always be Godzilla, not the image of someone rubbing a glove against strings. Like I still can't, like, it doesn't make sense in my head that that's the sound that's created from that, like it still can't.
Well, I'll say this, together. Like I got it when you said it. It made sense to me when you said it, but I do think it is a unique enough sound and an iconic enough sound that like I'm not going to be able to separate it from Godzilla, even if I know how the sausage is made, in the same way that like, once you know that certain horse sounds are made by like coconuts, like you're sort of like, oh, I can't stop picturing coconuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to have the image of how that sound is made, even if I know it and it makes sense to me.
Yeah. It's just again, what a fucking wild, and like reptiles like don't even roar. Like I guess like dinosaurs do. So that's probably, that's where the idea comes from.
Did they? Do we even know
But we
that?
don't even know that. Yeah, it's true. We don't know that. But people thought they did,
Sure.
But even then, it's like the fact that they didn't opt for just like whatever dinosaurs in other movies sounded
replacing it with like a lion's roar,
right,
or distorting it or something.
Right. Like they really were sort of like, we have to make something that you have never heard before in your life. And like, just, I so many like just stellar decisions on this movie.
Look, they were just sitting on this for so long. I don't know if they were specifically sitting on this, but like the feeling of it, and sort of the artistic urge, I'm sure they were sitting on for a long time.
So let's talk about we've talked about the real star, but let's talk about like the actual, the human stars of the movie. All the other, literally like the actual plot and like all the everything else that happens.
Yeah, I think there are human stars in here for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And having only, effectively for this podcast, having only seen this one, I do really, like, I can't stress, like, I know Godzilla is the title character and, like, the star of the franchise, but, like, the humans really are the main characters of this, and I think not uncompelling ones. Like, they are interesting characters, and characters I wanted to know more about and, like, felt for more than I did Godzilla, knowing that in the future I will feel more for Godzilla, probably, than I do for human characters, you know?
Yeah. Who do you want to start with? Everybody's got a nice little story in this movie.
I feel like, I know who I want to start with, but I feel like we should start with Ogata and Emiko, the sort of couple I already referenced.
Sure. Yeah. It's what's funny is that this movie has a love triangle, and sometimes love triangles are like, this love triangle does kind of work for me. I think for a couple of reasons. For one, because you meet Emiko and Ogata like early in the movie, and it's honestly like kind of a weird twist, like pretty deep into it, that there's actually a love triangle and they're not just like the main romantic pair that you want to get together. Like they throw in a wrench, like kind of like midway through the movie, that it's sort of like, she's actually engaged to somebody else, by the way.
Yeah, to the point where I was like, did I hear that right? Like, did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's a really subtle love triangle. And I think it makes sense. I think for what this movie is, the fact that this is all these characters and journeys are all against the backdrop of Godzilla arriving and attacking the city, obviously there's more to it than that, but like simplified, all their life events and where they are in time is all against that backdrop. I think it makes sense that they're not, overdoing the love triangle thing. I think given the circumstances, it would be weird if they were overdoing the love triangle thing.
Sure.
It just I think it helps to inform the characters and how they relate to each other, and it would be very weird if Emiko had taken the exact same actions with the third member of that triangle had she not been engaged to him. Like, I think that door needed to be opened in that way for her to interact with that third member, and so it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not, it is surprisingly subtle given how much sense it makes.
That is a good point though. Cause I think that it's not like it's a shoehorned in romance. Like the thing that I think is so interesting about this movie is that like, despite many, dudes being in on the action, like, Emiko is kind of like the protagonist in the sense that she really is the one that is the connective tissue between every main character and is kind of driving these plot points. And the only reason that anything happens in this movie with the people is because like she is connecting these people together and like relaying one bit of information from one person to the other. And that only happens because she is the daughter of the main scientist, and in between this love triangle between these two dudes that are also involved in the action.
Right. She really is the dramatic core, like in the most sort of like literal way, not the, none of these characters are particularly dramatic. They're all like, everything is very sort of subtle and melancholy as would be appropriate. But she's such a key ingredient here. Like all the relationships are like perfectly sort of woven together for things to happen the way that they do. This third member, though, is who I want to talk about. So as long as we're talking about the triangle,
Serizawa.
Serizawa,
what a guy!
is just
what a guy!
And you know what I love?
Yeah,
I love
an eye patch
when an old movie, especially. Well, yeah. I mean, I am ambivalent on eye patches. I don't care either way about eye patches. But what I love, especially in an old movie, is if you introduce a character with an eye patch and that person is like good and rules, because like it's such an easy visual cue to be like, this character has an eye patch, so there's something mysterious and dark about them, and they're probably a bad guy or lady. You know what I mean? Like
right.
They present him in a way that's sort of like, yeah, he's a little bit dark and he's a little bit mysterious, but like ultimately he seems like a really good dude and is like sort of like crushed by the weight of what he's created and capable of. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting. Like there's nothing mustache twirly about him. The eye patch really is like not communicating what I feel like so many other movies and stereotypically older movies would be communicating about a character.
Yeah.
He is as grounded as anybody else in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like Ogata and Serizawa fit the you know, the sort of like Betty and Veronica kind of thing where it's like Ogata is like just the handsome, like cool, like nice guy, and like Serizawa is like the dark, brooding one with a dark secret who's like kind of edgy. But like neither of them are like, I don't know. I like that they're not like rivals. First of all, like they're genuinely friends, and like neither of those like they're not like going hard on those archetypes in any direction. Like they're just kind of like trying to do their best in like this wild situation.
That's what the eye patch is, because yes, Ogata is like the sort of like handsome, young, sort of like ambitious, like romantic. But like Serizawa is also just like a handsome, young,
very true.
Like they truly needed something to be like, these guys are different, right? Like one of like to communicate the darkness, they couldn't just like put him in his science lab. They like needed something to be like, oh, maybe there's something that we can like cut the handsome with a little. We got to cover some of the handsomeness up.
Yeah,
because he's still just a really handsome guy.
He's a very handsome guy. I mean, look,
they're not putting anybody in this movie in like a lead role that isn't like stunning.
Everybody is so fucking hot in this movie. It's unreal.
So the only way they could communicate it is to put an eye patch on him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It works for me. And like, that's to say nothing of like his acting. Like he is very good at being the brooding character. But yeah, I think if you want to, I agree. Like
if you took the eye patch off, he'd just be another hot guy in this movie.
yeah, exactly.
Right, and I'm not speaking on the acting. They act their characters very differently. These characters are very different characters.
Yeah.
It's just funny to me, like, you know.
Yeah,
they both seem like good, handsome, you know, dudes.
Yeah. One just has
lucky.
A dark secret.
One has a very dark secret that he's trying so hard to be responsible about.
And everyone's just sort of like, no, we need death in our world right now, and you have to be responsible for it.
Like he's truly trying to be the best version of a person you could possibly want,
yes,
you know?
Yes. The other character we have is Dr. Yamane, so Takashi Shimura, I already fucking love that guy from Seventh Samurai. He's so good in that movie. And I love him in this one too. He's like my favorite actor in the movie. And I love his character too, because he's just like, he just wants what's best for Godzilla, and he just wants to learn from him. He wants to stop all the killing. He's
great.
It's so sad.
And it's like,
I love him.
It's tough. This is what I like. Like, I don't know how you could watch this movie, and maybe this isn't the movie that people are making the statement about, but like, I don't know how you could watch this movie with these human characters, even just the four we've mentioned, and say that the human stuff is boring. I mean, they are really complicated characters, and we only get to know them for like a tiny amount of time, you know? Because I mean, Professor Yamane, like, he just wants to save Godzilla and just wants to study Godzilla, but like the circumstances have already gotten so far that like even he has to know that like shit's already kind of hit the fan. Like I don't know that anybody's going to take me seriously or this idea seriously, or even like I don't even like I want to study Godzilla, But like, can we even walk back what's already happened to get to the point where I could do that? You know, like that's a rough thing to wrestle with, to know that like this would be the right thing to do, but I don't know if we can even do that anymore, you know?
Yeah, I love his presence in this movie because, you know, they obviously needed a scientist character to explain the science and the lore of the movie. Fulfills that role great. He's a very charismatic guy, so like he's able to give that exposition great, amazingly, and it's super good. So I'm so glad that they give him other stuff to do as well. He isn't just Mr. Science and Mr. Exposition. He's also there to essentially like endear the audience to Godzilla as a creature, you know? And like, because I think, you know, probably a problem with, I'm sure, with many other monster movies is sort of like, you don't have that character in the cast who's just sort of being like, but FYI, this is just like a fucking animal though, right? Like we can't treat this like it's a villain. Like this movie does have that. Like Dr. Yamane is sort of like, Godzilla is a tragic character and it would be really awful if we just murdered him. Like, it sucks what's happening right now, but we can't just fucking kill the guy, you know?
And you know what? One thing I love about this movie, just because it's a living creature, it would be wrong for us to kill this thing based on its circumstances and because it's a living creature. There's no like shocking revelation. It's not like we can't kill it because it's pregnant. Yeah. We can't kill it because it's female. We can't kill it because it's the last one. Like, just like we can't kill it because we shouldn't do that. Like, we shouldn't do that, you guys. That's the wrong thing to do. I love that. I think so much of this movie is presented in, it's weird to say, but like that subtlety across the board, you know, I think serves this movie in such a good way. And that's another one of those examples where like they're not overdoing that. Like he just believes it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it's a living thing. And because it didn't do anything wrong.
I think that a lot of that really comes from Honda's background and is sort of like pacifism. Like, not that, you know, there's a lot of obviously
a lot
of creative forces involved in the movie, but I do think that like that stuff probably only gets hammered in because of Honda specifically. And yeah, I think really wanting to like approach a monster movie with the intention that the monster is ultimately an innocent animal in this, you know, in this scenario.
Right. It's purely just compassion. There's no like justification needed for why you would be compassionate. It's just correct to be compassionate.
Yeah. Yeah. I
love that about this movie.
I love that
so
much.
About that character.
Yeah, I love it. I fully agree. I love it so much. Also, like, this is so subtle, but I love that like they don't even really comment on it. But the kid in the beginning, that's part of the village of fishermen, Shinkichi, Yamane just like kind of just like adopts the kid because he's like living with them, and like they don't make a thing out of it. Like it's just sort of like he's just a compassionate guy, and now he's just got this orphan living with them. Like it's. I love that detail. Like it's just like they're just like
why
good
wouldn't
people.
I take care of him?
Yeah. I love that. What a good guy. What a good dude.
Yeah.
We all need a Professor Yamane in our lives.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the village because I don't know how much necessarily you plan to talk about it, but as long as we're talking about like Yamane and like the science of it all, the village was interesting to me, and a thing that I didn't necessarily remember. I found it really interesting that there is also an older male figure in the village who is like, oh, that must be Godzilla. Like that must be who that is. And then tells you sort of like the legend folky version of Godzilla. That was a thing I completely forgot. And I found it really fascinating because it had none of the science. And it was actually surprisingly Kong-esque in sort of the like, it does its own thing, but under these circumstances, it could be antagonistic towards us. And so there have been times where we have done questionable things to sort of maintain our relationship and distance from Godzilla. You know, like they don't talk about it a lot. It's not really a big part of the movie. It's mostly sort of it mostly serves to introduce Godzilla as this mysterious presence we haven't seen yet.
And name him,
right?
Basically. Yeah.
And name him, But I just totally forgot that was a piece, that there was any part of this world that had a folklore about Godzilla. Yeah. And I just thought that was neat. And that it was a long-standing folklore. It wasn't even necessarily a recent history thing. It's like a story and an experience that's been passed down for a long time, implying that like there's probably there's been more than one, you know, like
Yeah.
this is a relationship that's been ongoing in the way that we as humans have had several generations. Our relationship with the monster Godzilla has lasted several generations of the monster Godzilla. I don't know, that it really kind of caught me off guard in a cool way.
Well, and it's like, it honestly, like, it works for the lore too, like, because if the idea is that Godzilla is a prehistoric creature, like basically a dinosaur that's just lived underwater for, you know, what, I guess millions of years, that sort of, you know, more heavily implies that like Godzilla or other Godzillas have had some, you know, a minimal interaction with people, like enough that like this village knows that he exists at some point through their generations, but also like adds power to how different the world is after the invention of atomic weapons, because it's like, oh, he's existed for millions of years and has even been around people a little bit, and it really was the atomic bomb that actually drove him to actually come to shore.
No question. There is no question about why, like, who fucked up and how. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do think that's important. That's a good point. That probably clarifies like why that felt so significant to me. That sort of distinction between the sort of old folky version of the Godzilla story versus the current present day like reality of Godzilla.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, though, because I do think that's the kind of thing that I kind of forget about that aspect of the movie too, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, like, I love that, like, that's kind of the horror movie side of it, that like Godzilla's earliest appearances are not in a city. It is like in a small village where it's like harder to prove his existence for a little while. Not for that long. I mean, it is pretty quick. And one thing I love about this movie so much is that it's like, again, I watched Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and so fucking much of that movie is just sort of like trying to convince people that the beast exists. And it's sort of like, it's going to show up in the end anyway. Why are we setting the whole movie with this? So many movies do that. This movie, it really is just sort of like, he makes kind of one appearance and it's sort of like, we got enough evidence. Hey, y'all, there's a dinosaur. He's real. And everyone's just like, damn, that sucks. Okay, well, I guess we believe you. Like, and then they just like move on from that,
right.
You know?
It's less about, no, it's so smart because and I think focusing on the Odo Island and the village and sort of it being at a distance from sort of like the most modern version of Japan, you know, at the start of the movie is so much smarter than just being like, does it exist?
Right.
Can we convince people it exists? Because yes, we know it exists. It's more a question of like, will it arrive here and when? And what will that look like? You know what I mean? And I do think it creates a believable distance between the monster appearing and shit hitting the fan.
Yeah.
Because if you think about a horror movie, if something's happening in a small town, like, it's not necessarily taken seriously by the big city an hour away, you know, until it actually arrives. And so, like, once the big city's like, oh yeah, that exists, are they coming here next? Like, now you have that sort of like doom and suspense.
Yeah. But even then, you know what? They still do smart stuff with it though, because it's like, okay, well, there's two things that I want to say about this, because like the government officials, the military, whoever's on that panel that Numane presents to, like, they believe him pretty quickly. They're like, okay, you've given us the evidence. You've given us the fucking giant trilobite, which is also really fucking cool.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I love that. But you've given us all this evidence, right? So like, we believe you. We're going to not put this in the media. And then you have like this, like a bunch of women that are sort of like, what the fuck, dude? We've got to warn people about this. Like, I don't really even know who they were.
I think they're supposed to be wives and family members of
the fishermen. Got it. Which makes sense. Yeah. But I love that it's like all of like, that just, I don't know, that felt like maybe unintentional, that there felt like a progressive kind of edge to that, where like all these fucking men were just sort of like, we know what's best for everyone. And then like all the women were sort of like,
feels like a
what
horror
the fuck
movie
is
thing
wrong
too.
with you?
That feels like a horror movie thing too. It feels like the police that aren't telling the village what's going on, and people being like, people are dying. What's happening?
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing that happens in horror movies too.
Yeah. So like, I love that. And then they do get convinced to like put it out into the media. But what I really love is like the reaction to people learning about the existence of a giant fucking radioactive dinosaur is like, there's that scene of like the lady on the train and she's reading the paper and she's just like, I barely got out of Nagasaki and I have to deal with this shit.
Oh yes.
But oh my God. Which is like, and like the way that it's like almost like a throwaway kind of thing. It's like, but that just happened. Now this is happening. I don't have time to evacuate. I've got to live my life. Like, I know this is not a fair comparison. We brought it before. It reminds me of like things people have said over the past few years, which is sort of like so many fucking historical events and tragedies have happened one right after another that it doesn't even impact me anymore. I'm just like, I'm just exhausted by another historical event happening. So like, what's another fucking tragedy, man? And it's like giving that, like her response on the train. It's just like, well, here we go again. I really don't feel like evacuating. It's like nobody's really taking it seriously because they've already seen so much horror that it's sort of like, what's another terrible thing to happen to us? Like,
I already upended my life. And it is wild for anything to be treated that casually because, like, when you consider what she's referencing by referencing Nagasaki, like, it's wild. But you're right. It's so real, and it's totally a thing people do. I mean, people don't evacuate things all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, both in fiction and in reality, where it's like, I can't right now. Like, I can't do that. And it's like, part of you is like, why are you not getting up? But part of you is sort of like, I get it.
Yeah,
like,
it's hard.
I sort of understand.
It's
like,
hard. I don't know what I would do. I mean, I don't know. I would like to think that I'm smart enough to like evacuate, but I also feel like I'd just be like, yeah, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, that's a lot of work.
I'm sorry, Derek, if Godzilla's attacking your city, you're not going away from Godzilla. You're going toward Godzilla.
I was thinking a similar scenario, not Godzilla exactly. You know, but yes, you're right. I would just be like, well, this is exactly how I want to die specifically. Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, even on a small scale, again, these aren't like exact comparisons, but even just on a small scale, I'm trying to think like, because you're saying like, what would I do? Like, the last time I ever did anything about like a tornado warning in my area, I can't remember the last time I was like, oh, they're telling me I should take this seriously. I guess I'll keep playing my video game because I'm in the middle of something. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's such a small example, but like, if you've experienced tragedy after tragedy or something so huge that you had to completely reinvent your life, not just like start your file over, you know, like I get where she's kind of coming from.
Yeah. It's wild. Just like the scale or the breadth of like different kinds of reactions to the scenario we see in this movie is so wild. Like, it's so smartly done.
Yeah.
So some other stuff. I want to talk about the oxygen destroyer, but that's a lot of like end movie stuff. The actual like destruction that we see of Godzilla and like some of the horrific stuff and the consequences of that. There's like really some of the most haunting stuff from this movie, right? Is like obviously like from Godzilla's rampage and then seeing the aftermath of it. And like, there are some moments that just, I will never not stick with me. The mom, like telling her children, like, we're going to join daddy now. Like, as she's like hugging her, like 3 children. Like, I remember when I first watched this movie and like, I kind of burst into tears when I saw that. And every time I get to it, horrible. It hits me in the gut. It's and it's like, it's just so, it's so matter of fact there. It's just like, I mean, and there's like, you immediately just get like so much history of this person's life just unloaded on you in that moment. You know, it's just, it's so poignant.
It's interesting. Like, there are certain things, I'm just like looking through things I wrote down, which had to have been significant enough for me to be like, whoa. And like, it's just interesting quotes. Like, some of them are just interesting quotes I'm seeing, like sort of from like in the realm of destruction, but like the way that people are communicating about it to each other or reporting details of it that sort of like builds and builds and builds the mythology. For some reason, it really resonated me. It was one of the courtroom scenes where just they say they were crushed from above. Like, they're referencing like boats and helicopters and stuff. Just the idea that like, no, you guys don't understand. Like, they were crushed from above. Something had to be higher than them to like destroy the helicopters. That was one thing that I was like, oh, that's such a good line in detail to really like sell the severity of what's going on.
And with so much
and
stuff.
Then
It's so much stuff that like I feel like we take for granted now with giant monster movies, but like that one line, like that is kind of shocking if you've never heard it before.
Right.
That there is something
You're
big
like, what
enough.
do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Like what, did something like did a mountain fall on it? Like what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's unfathomable that something could destroy a helicopter from above.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I guess maybe this is getting too close to the destruction, like the destruction of Godzilla versus Godzilla's destruction of the city.
Yeah.
But Yamane saying Godzilla was baptized in the fire of the H-bomb and survived to just be like, what the fuck do you think you're going to do about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I understand you want to stop what's going on here, but like, what do you think you can do to this thing?
No, that is such a good, scary line. Like, yeah, again, it is just like so much of this movie, I feel like you really do have to put yourself in the context of like when it was happening and try to like forget all the kaiju stuff that comes afterwards, because some of the stuff it is like, again, it's just sort of like, well, yeah, of course, Godzilla. There's a million Godzilla movies, so like you're not gonna be able to stop him. Like it's powerful, but it's sort of like that is a really scary thing to hear. That it's not only is this giant fucking monster demolishing everything, it's like the most destructive weapon in the history of the world is what created him.
Just woke it up.
It's what woke him up. Yeah, no, you're right. Didn't even just create
it was
him,
its alarm in
up.
the morning.
Yeah, like that is terrifying. That is absolutely and in a movie that is based in reality to the extent that it's not like you don't really expect they're going to come up with a magical sci-fi weapon. You this isn't a kind of movie that sets itself up to be something where they're going to come up with a death ray that will shoot Godzilla and that's how they destroy him. Like, so hearing that there's nothing else you can do, that is a truly scary thing to say, because then it's like, well, what the hell are they going to do? Like, how does this movie where's this movie going to go? How's it going to end, you know?
Well, and I think those things, like the two things that I wrote down and you talking about the woman and her children, like I think it's worth mentioning, obviously, like we watched this in Japanese, but we had English subtitles. Like even as poetic as the like Godzilla was baptized in fire, like that's not the point. The point of each one of the things we mentioned like translate no matter what, right? Like what that woman was saying, it doesn't matter like how flowery you translate it. The point of what she's saying drives it home. The point that something was big enough to destroy something from above, doesn't matter how you say that. Like the point is still terrifying, you know? The point that this thing was simply woken up by a bomb, like an atomic bomb, as opposed to like being, you know, killed by it. Like the point is still there. So I can't imagine that in like any language is translated, however poetically or crudely it is translated, like the point always hits, you know?
Oh, that's such a good point. I love that you pointed that out. The only other one that I have from Godzilla's destruction that is a scene that I also love because it's so fucking wild. The reporter on the tower, I think it's Tokyo Tower that he's on, that is reporting as Godzilla attacks and destroys the tower. The truly best reporter in the history of the world. That dude is doing his job, literally reporting on his own death actively, and like gets to sign off, like give his goodbye live on the air just before he like fucking falls off of a tower. Incredible shit. Like incredible. I've never seen something like that in a movie before. Like
it was really incredible. Like it just keeps going. Yeah. Just like, all right, it's happening. It's happening, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
just wild.
Yeah. Wild shit, man.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, I already talked about the fire. I asked that so much earlier than I thought I was going to. But as far as like Godzilla's rampage goes, the image, my favorite sort of image of it, like him in the city, is the one where he like peeks over a building and you can see people in the building.
Yes.
Like one, it's just a really like the composition of the shot is like unique all on its own. Mm-hmm. Like it would still be a really striking shot if you made it now with any number of different sort of non-practical effects, or even if it was a still image, it would be really striking. Mm-hmm. But just knowing they had to pull that off, and it still manages to be as striking as it is. Like it's just terrifying. And this is all while like the city's being destroyed, and it's this really striking image that you could frame and put on a wall, you know?
Yeah.
And then you just see these little people moving, like the scale of it. Anything that makes people feel like hamsters in a cage, like at that scale, I find so cool. And that scene makes humans feel like ants, you know? It makes them feel like such tiny, insignificant creatures just sort of like scattering about, you know? In their terror, which is like weird because I'm one of them, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
So much in one shot.
Oh my God. Yeah. Honda's a good director of films.
Imagine that.
Oh my God. So this fucking oxygen destroyer, it is like the one like kind of sci-fi element we have in here, I guess, but it's like, I think it's so well executed. So like, I mean, I remember I asked you last week, like, how does Godzilla get defeated in this movie? And you did not remember at all. So I
was trying to remember if you even asked me that. So if anybody thought I would remember how it actually happened. I was watching this movie and being like, did Derek ask me about how this ends? Because I don't remember.
Amazing.
How it ends, or if he asked me.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's ultimately the way that they defeat Godzilla is by creating another weapon of mass destruction, which is the whole conflict of basically like the whole last act of the movie is just like a weapon of mass destruction, like caused this guy's rampage in the first place. Now they're caught between this idea that like another weapon of mass destruction now exists, but that's the only way that could stop him. But to do so, you are creating and unleashing another weapon of mass destruction, which was the whole thing that started this in the first place. So like, is just this cycle of destruction just cyclical, like forever, you know?
It's not even, I mean, it's that, yes, right? Like this sort of like the monster that was awoken literally by the atomic weapons is Godzilla, but the monster that is awoken by that is the constant cycle of weapons of mass destruction. Yes, but what I specifically love about what this movie does and what Serizawa says is like, if anybody knows this exists, the world is fucked, right? Like basically, if the Americans find out that this exists, you know, like they can't be trusted. Like it's just interesting to me that like it's not just that he doesn't want to be responsible for creating another weapon, it's that he doesn't want to be responsible for introducing a weapon to the entire world, right? Because there's no way for him to introduce that without the entire world knowing, which is actually kind of interesting because like I know it's not the point, but there were a couple times, and it's easy to answer, but there were a couple times where I was like, this monster has like destroyed 20 ships and is attacking the country and like nobody else seems to like notice or care. But you can easily answer that question as to why nobody else is like intervening. But the global ramifications I find really interesting when Serizawa is talking about like, it's not just that like this is a weapon that will destroy the entirety of life in Tokyo Bay. It's that like I can't put back in the toothpaste that will be let out if anybody knows that this exists.
Yeah. But like, and that's exactly what happened with nuclear weapons, right? Like as soon as the atomic bomb that was invented. I mean, you know, there was literally just a movie that came out about that was very popular. Like the idea that it's like, as soon as the genie was out of the bottle, that like this, a weapon, that has such a maximum caliber of destruction exists that like, if a true nuclear war happened where everyone was shooting nuclear missiles at each other, it would just be the literal end of humanity. Yeah. No coming back from that 100%. Like that, it is like, obviously like the two of us have only ever lived in a world post the creation of that. Right. But like the idea that there was a point in time before something like that was created and then it was created and people in the immediately after had to reckon with the idea that like, oh, this exists now. There's always going to be a threat of death by atomic bomb.
Right. The like, reckoning is so specific, right? Because the entirety of human history existed with that not even being a possibility for all of history before, and then all of history after. I mean, we honestly take for granted the fact, and it is a fact of life, that at any given moment, the entire world could be destroyed by nuclear nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
But there was a
And it's all just
period of
because of our
time
fucking-
where
Yeah.
like people could be in disbelief about that fact and be convinced
Yeah.
about that fact. Like that window of time is so absolutely tiny in the sort of big picture of human history.
But like there was a point in time when there was literally no way humans could destroy the world,
Right?
Like instantly if they wanted
Right.
to. And suddenly it is possible for humans to just destroy the planet, like by pushing a button, like it's truly like it's the kind of thing that you just can't really think about, or else you will go insane.
Yes.
Like you can't. Like that's the only reason.
It's
I
why
think we
everybody
take it for
our age
granted.
just doesn't think about it.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, like, you truly can't. I mean, like, it was fucking.
Yeah.
People were going insane about it in like the Cold War,
Yes.
right? So like,
Yes.
we just have to accept
And for
that,
a
like,
while after.
right? Yeah. So like, you just kind of just have to accept that that's a possibility and hope it never happens, because nothing we can fucking do about it.
Right. And this is a unique weapon too, right? And I think it's significant that like he doesn't just create another atomic bomb. He doesn't just create
True,
the next
yeah.
version of it, right?
Yeah.
Like specifically the weapon that he creates is one that destroys life in water, which is actually like I think it's kind of the perfect weapon for this movie taking place in Japan to be the weapon that is created. I mean, that is so I mean, if you think about like the destruction that is caused collaterally by destroying Godzilla in this movie, I mean
Seriously.
the entirety of all like fishing just fucked off.
Yeah.
For how long? You know what I mean?
It's
like they can't
wild.
fish the entirety of Tokyo Bay for how long?
Yeah.
And imagine that being used like intentionally as a weapon to like screw over any coastal country, any country with a coast at all, you know?
Yeah. And I think I like how they visualize that, the way that it works too. I mean, the first step is just, some bubbles in water. It looks like it's like boiling or whatever, which, is a cool, simple effect.
Yeah,
But
nobody
I
think about the logistics.
like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, it destroys all the oxygen in the water, and then somehow that it turns oxygen into fluid, which somehow means that you turn into bones. Sure. But
Yeah.
but I think the effect of seeing something
Yeah.
just disintegrate into bones is very effective. Like, honestly, like,
Yeah.
I think it's even maybe this isn't true, but like for me, it almost hits me harder. Like, I have seen visualizations of atomic bombs going off, like in like, Terminator 2, right? Like you see people disintegrate into ash, which is a horrifying thing to see. And that is a horrifying concept. I think the way that the oxygen destroyer still just like turns you into a skeleton and that is left behind. I think that there's something that for me, it sticks in my head even harder, like in a scarier way. Cause it's like, you see like, I don't know. It's like you are visualizing the rot and decay that instantly happens to you if you're the subject of this weapon, and you see what is specifically left behind, which is your skeletal remains. And I don't know, something about that kind of hits me a lot. So I feel like it was smart to have that visual indicator rather than just having them just vanish or something or melt away.
Yeah, I don't know if I can co-sign that it's more horrifying than visualizations of like an atomic
I guess
bomb.
they're like,
but I do think
horrifying in
it's
like on a similar. They're horrifying in different ways, but in a similar level. I guess maybe not.
I'm not challenging you specifically to say you should not think. I mean, I think it is just what horrifies you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and being disintegrated in an instant to me is like just unfathomably horrifying.
Sure. Yeah.
But like but I do think the imagery in this movie is really effective, even just in the tank.
Yes.
Like even just in his lab. And what's wild is like that again, like is all practically done. So like the fact that it is this sort of murky tank, the fact that it's all practical, the fact that there's no sort of like here's the curtain and suddenly it's different. Like you just are sort of like looking at it, squinting and being like, what's happening in there because of those bubbles, because of the murkiness. And you just sort of, before you realize it, like you see fish and then suddenly you see skeletons.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I know you explain it, but like, I don't know how you did what you just did.
Yeah.
It's probably literally just a cool transition.
I think
but like in the moment, you're just like, what the fuck happened in there? I don't know,
And this is
that's really effective.
It is really effective, and this is a minor thing, but I really like in a modern movie, I feel like killing a bunch of fish wouldn't be enough. I feel like the filmmakers would just be like, the audience doesn't give a shit about fish. We've got to like amp this up. But I love that like Emiko has, I think, what is a realistic reaction to seeing a tank of fish melt into skeletons. Like, she is horrified and truly shaken by this, like truly horrified by this. And I feel like, and maybe I'm being unfair to like modern movies or whatever, but I feel like a lot of movies now would want to like up those stakes, like to be more visceral about it. Like, wouldn't feel like a fish tank would be enough, even though I do think it is very realistic that would be a truly horrifying thing to see.
I don't think you're being unfair to modern filmmaking. I think this is an ongoing discussion about like, you know, sometimes being limited in being able to like depict something is actually beneficial, because you can't oversell something and you can't flex on them. You know what I mean? Like only being able to do sort of like minimal haunting effects often ends up being really effective because it ends up feeling so much more grounded. It's not that CGI always looks bad. It's that you want to do too much with it because it's so accessible. You know, you could effectively use CGI to pull things off, but I think the compulsion to do more because it's readily available to you is a problem. Yeah, you know?
I feel like
not showing Michael Myers is and not being able to do a lot of the kills that they will eventually pull off in future movies makes him scarier.
Yeah, well, I feel like you know, and I think like the fish aspect of it too. Like, I feel like a lot of movies would be like, we're going to do a dog because that's really going to hit you in the gut and you're going to be really horrified if it's a dog. And we're going to like CGI all the flesh being ripped from it as the oxygen destroyer comes on or something like that.
It's not even that like the CGI would look bad, because it probably would. It's already a problem. The decision to like include all of that. You've already done too much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like, I think Honda was a compassionate enough person that it's just sort of like, no, we wouldn't want to do this to a fish either. Like, it would be really fucked up to just kill a fish like this for no reason. Like, that's cruel.
And Emiko is the daughter of a scientist, and she's betrothed to a scientist.
Yeah.
Like, she understands the implications. Right. So like getting the reaction through her and having it be one of horror, one, makes sense, and two, sells what in many other movies that don't have the restraint might not necessarily hit quite as hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, by the time you realize, like, I can't get over the fact that they unleash this in the Tokyo Bay. Like, I cannot get over that fact. Like, that to me is why the fish tank is the correct choice.
Yeah.
Not just because like people do or don't care about fish, but because it so directly relates to exactly what they do to their own ecosystem. They're one of their own industries and economies, you know, like, it's just, I can't get over it. It's so horrifying what they have to do to themselves to get rid of Godzilla.
Yeah. And the entire sequence, when they actually do get rid of Godzilla, it's so fucking good and so sad for so many different reasons. Like, truly not a happy ending of this movie, like in any direction. 'Cause like, I mean, there's a few angles to it. So one thing that really strikes me about it is that when they kill Godzilla, it's not in battle or whatever. It's not in like a, you know, in defense of an attack. They just like go underwater where he's just fucking chilling. Like, and I obviously I understand that they're taking action to prevent future action from Godzilla, but there is a possibility that Godzilla walked through Tokyo, was like, I don't fucking like this. I'm in a lot of pain,
and was done
and was heading underwater and was probably going to find another fucking cave and would never be seen ever again.
I know.
And they just go down and fucking murder him. Like, it.
I couldn't shake the idea that like Godzilla just watched these two dudes walk up.
Yeah.
And could have just been like, it was hard for me. And again, this was me watching it, not necessarily like having the sort of like deep emotional connection to Godzilla yet, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I do feel like the movie keeps him at a distance. So like, I wasn't watching it with Godzilla sort of at front of mind. I very much was watching it with humans at front of mind. But I could not shake the idea that like Godzilla watched them walk up the same way that my cat watches me walk in from the other room.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you wouldn't just walk in and smack your cat. Like, that would be such a betrayal.
Yeah.
And like, I know that they have this complicated history of Godzilla walking through and destroying.
But like,
a bunch of
even
stuff.
okay, but if you consider,
you're
like,
right in that moment, right? Like, if you consider Godzilla an animal, and you should, and you consider the rampage a reaction, which you should, right? Like, it's just acting in the way that an animal reacting would. So then by the time it's calmed down, it is just watching you walk up.
Yeah.
It doesn't know these two humans from, like, as far, like, it didn't see humans doing things to it. It saw tanks and helicopters. Like, those are just two animals in the bay.
Yeah. I mean, if you consider, if you had a house close to the woods and a bear just stumbled up to your house and like, broke a bunch of your shit, and then someone who happened to be there was like getting too aggressive with it, and they mauled that person, and they died, but then the bear just fucked back off in the woods. If you then went out with the gun like days later, found that bear and just shot it in cold blood
while it was sleeping,
like, that's a pretty fucked up thing to do. I do think that is how things go sometimes in the world.
That's absolutely how things go.
But I think that it is pretty fucking, I mean, and I understand when it's like an animal with rabies or something, but I do think it's wrong that it's just like, if an animal,
it doesn't change the fact that animal doesn't understand what's going on,
and you just like,
you know what I mean?
it in cold
even
blood,
if that
basically.
animal has rabies, even if that animal killed a bunch of humans, like, it doesn't change the fact that animal does not understand, and very likely, especially if it's sleeping, just wakes up and is like, I see an animal, like, I see another thing or another person. Like, yeah, I think the point still stands. The fact that, like, and I think the choice is really clear.
Yes.
That, like, it is not in battle. You would expect it to be in battle. You would expect it to be climactic, you know? And it's just, it's not.
Yeah.
It's really sad and peaceful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all from the Godzilla side. That's not even considering the, like, tragedy of the human side of things, which is also tragic. My boy, Serizawa, like, and I knew that was going to happen. I mean, the moment Serizawa talks about, like, I even if I destroy this stuff, like, I will still exist. I still know how I made it. They will come after me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fact that he even says, like, humans are weak, they will coerce it out of me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this dude is not living past this movie. There's just simply no way this guy stays alive.
Consider the real world context that Honda was a prisoner of war. Like, I mean, I think I have to imagine that was in his head when, co-writing the screenplay for this character. So yeah. And it's really, so like, it's very like, it's very telegraphed, and it's like very obvious it's going to happen, but it doesn't make it any less impactful when it does, because again, the music fucking rules. It is really powerful throughout that whole sequence. And like, I think that you have really good acting on the side of like Okada and Emiko, and their reactions to all of this happening. Like, it's a really smart decision that Serizawa is like talking to them through his radio from there. Like, they never got a chance to resolve the love triangle, but like, he knew, like, it's like, he makes it clear that he fucking knew this was going on, but had too much other shit going on. And like, it's sort of like, I wish you two the best, to which Emiko fucking bursts into tears. And I'm like, this relationship is never going to work. Death is always going to be hanging over their heads. They will never be able to make it together, because they will always feel guilty about their best friend fucking killing themselves, and his last dying words being to wish the two people who was cheating on him well. So doesn't end well for literally anybody.
No, they're staying together forever. I don't know if it's the right reason to, but they will literally never separate from each other. They will be haunted for the rest of their lives if they do anything but stay together. Not the right circumstances to stay together, but they're doing it.
My God.
I just can't get over the fact that, like, what hopeful people those two are, that they thought he was ever going to come back up from the water. He told them directly that he cannot survive this, but I just when they pull up that cord, I was like, oh, you should have known. You should have known. We all knew.
And then it's like the 1-2 punch of like him cutting the cord and staying down to die. And then I think it's kind of unexpected. Like, I think you expect it's like, okay, Godzilla's going to drown, but you get Godzilla's head coming up out of the water one more time to fucking
oh my God,
roar like the most like sad, pained roar right before he sinks back down.
It's the last couple steps after you shoot the bear in the woods that didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
It like Godzilla came up to be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, and
then dies.
And they have to they have to witness it, including like
they have to look it in the eyes and face what they just did.
Including Yamane, who didn't want this to happen. Like,
yeah,
how poor guy, like the nightmares he's going to have for the rest of his life having to watch that happen.
Oh. And then like considering that, the fact that like the last thing spoken in the movie,
yeah.
I think it's the last thing spoken in the movie, is that if nuclear testing continues, another Godzilla may appear. Here's the thing. I couldn't remember how they defeated Godzilla, so I couldn't remember if they just staved off the attack. Mm-hmm. So there was a part of me that was kind of like, I don't think the oxygen thing's going to work, because surely they're not actually going to kill Godzilla in this movie.
There's literally going to be a sequel 1 year later, so, like, he can't die,
Well,
right?
that's the thing is, like, well, kind of. I mean, like, I knew that there were plenty more, but it wasn't, like, I didn't know the circumstances. I had no idea, like, if they kill this thing, like, how that could happen. And there was a part of me watching the movie that was like, I mean, I don't think they necessarily made this movie thinking like, oh, we've got a franchise on our hands.
This
you know
was
what
meant
I mean?
to be a one and
like,
done movie for sure. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But how perfect that the movie ends the way that it does. And ends with him saying that. I mean, he's not saying it to set up a franchise. He's saying it to drive home the point that like Godzilla represented the horrible future that is us continuing to experiment with weapons of mass destruction. But also it just happened to give them the perfect sort of, I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming I can figure out maybe some cases where there's like how a sequel happens.
Yeah.
But I don't know the details. And apparently there are 3 sequels to it, like 3 separate ones, right?
Oh,
so
even more than that.
I guess they have a few swings at it.
Honestly, even more than that. I'm just doing the first immediate ones. But yeah, yes.
There are more than 3 direct sequels to this movie?
Well, because, you know, I told you the Millennium era is a lot of anthology movies. So, like, there's
so a lot of them are just direct sequels to this movie.
Right, yeah. So
I see.
Yeah.
More like Halloween than I thought.
Yeah, oh my God. It's an amazingly powerful ending, and then it's just, we're done. Man. I got a couple of fun bits to wrap us up. Did you have any other thoughts that you didn't get a chance to get to about the movie itself?
Just planes on wires were really making me chuckle.
So fun.
I just loved the planes. I mean, the whole sequence of planes firing missiles that were fireworks at Godzilla. It's like, I guess that's one of the moments where like it does show like, oh, this was a movie made in 1954. Sure. Like when you reference that, I was thinking more along the lines of like a lot of their composite shots and stuff, which I really don't think show that much age. No. That's one of the scenes where it does, but I was so delighted.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is like kind of cute, even though I can see all the wires. Like I'm entertained by it, knowing full well what's going on practically, and I still think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's one of those cases where like it's cool because you can see how they did it, but that makes it even more fun because it's sort of like, oh wow, I am now picturing what it had to be like to build this, like, you know, the set selection of wires that you could then have these little tiny planes moving on, and then have the sparks. I think the sparks are also on wires too, just like traveling down the wires, right? So yeah.
And maybe this is specifically you and me and people who are familiar with like the genre and have seen behind the scenes photos of like monster, like these types of practical monsters and tokusatsu properties and stuff. But I could not help but think about like the sort of behind the scenes, no post production, like just being in the room watching this happen with like none of the sounds, none of the music. I just was like, I was cracking myself up imagining the actor just like stomping around and these planes flying out, like just so funny to me. I love it.
It's so funny. And like, I mean, in all seriousness, I think that's like a thing that I think you have to give so much credit to these suit actors for, because it is fucking ridiculous what they're doing, and to like be able to really do it seriously and be able to pull it off and create a monster under those circumstances is like, really, like you have to be so committed to your craft, like to not just see what you're doing as a joke, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that I was like, I absolutely have to talk about the plane. Like I think that was the last thing I had before.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we close this out.
I got a couple of fun things. Just a couple of fun bits from now that we've seen and talked about this dark movie. The original treatment for this movie that Kayama had written that was really short. It was a very, like, you can really see how Honda especially sort of like elevated what almost like a regular, very run-of-the-mill monster movie. Just a couple of fun little bits. The original title that Tanaka had pitched, we complained about The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. He wanted to title the movie The Giant Monster from 20,000 Miles Under the Sea.
No.
I'm glad that didn't happen.
Terrible.
Yes, very terrible. Also terrible in the treatment, Dr. Yamane, our wonderful Dr. Yamane that we love. He was characterized as wearing dark shades, a cape, living in a European style house from which he emerged only at night.
Why? Literally for what?
I don't know.
I would honestly buy Serizawa being that character way more than I would. But like, Serizawa is just so barely off the like mad scientist stereotype. Like, they do such a good job of bringing him right up to that and then being like, JK, he's not a mad scientist.
Yeah. And Godzilla also, like, I think we talked about, I forgot about this, but like when we were talking about the naming of Godzilla and like part of his name comes from the Japanese word for gorilla, like there was a point when it would be like he would be more of like basically an aquatic gorilla, essentially. It would be very much more of like a King Kong kind of ripoff. Ostensibly, he would also have like an interest in women, just like King Kong did, which would be weird.
Boo.
And was more like he's coming ashore to like feed on animals and stuff like that. Like there was a scene they did try to film of Godzilla eating a cow, and it just like wasn't going to work and everything. But also,
glad it didn't work.
Also, this wasn't from his treatment specifically, but there was when it was like in the potential gorilla phase, they came up with this idea of like, what if we go even harder on the metaphor for atomic bombs, and was like, maybe this gorilla, maybe his head kind of looks like a mushroom cloud. And I just texted you some of the concept art.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Hold on. Oh boy. Couldn't be more oh God. Oh,
it is
what the fuck?
Scary. I don't think they'd be able to have pulled it off in the movie. I'm obviously very glad they went with what they did, but
I mean, I'm very glad they went with what they did, but I still want to see this realized.
I would be curious what it would look like.
A headpiece.
Yeah.
Because like what's weird is, we're seeing like the image that Derek sent me is basically in profile and like head on. And the head on picture, it's really unsettling because it's the shape of a mushroom cloud. And so like, if you didn't know that it was meant to be a face, you might not notice the face in it right away. And creepy. That to me is creepy. Like as corny as it always is when people are like, oh, I see the face of the devil in this fire smoke. It is actually kind of creepy to me. Like when once it's pointed out, I know it's all corny and stupid when people do it, but like, something about it,
absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought those were, especially after this like deep conversation of like what the movie was, like some of the what could have been is very interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot of those types of fun things for Godzilla movies going forward, just because,
hell yeah,
and oftentimes it's some weird ass shit. So
yes,
yeah. So going into the next one, you've watched one Godzilla movie for this podcast. The next movie we are going to do is going to be 1955's Godzilla Raids Again, which is 1 year later. It's the direct sequel.
Interesting name.
So,
given how this one ends,
right. So, a few questions for you, Doug. Here's your predictions for next month's movie. So, this movie ends. Godzilla is bones. How is there another Godzilla movie 1 year later?
That's why I was so shocked to see Godzilla's bones. Like, there was a point at which I was like, okay, maybe they kill him. But I was like, I can't believe we saw the bones. That's so definitive. So I don't know. I mean, I think the sort of least ridiculous answer lives in the content of the movie we just watched, which is that Godzilla is not the only Godzilla. And so as weird as the title Godzilla Raids Again is, I'm gonna stick with the sort of Occam's razor explanation that is in the context of what we just watched, which is that there just is another Godzilla, and that Godzilla Raids Again is just like not an accurate name for the movie.
Sure. I mean, you know what? We talked about the weird, the naming stuff. So we'll explore all the different names for that movie next month as well, and see if any of them.
I don't want to overthink it.
Yeah.
Because anything I think up isn't going to be as good as what they actually do, unless I'm right.
Sure. We will find out. Another question for you. Do any other kaiju show up? And if so, who?
In the next movie, I'm going to say no.
Cool.
Only one movie later, I'm going to say that it's still just Godzilla.
Cool.
Because it's also only 1 year later.
Yeah, it's just 1 year later. Yeah. And last but not least, plenty of human characters in this movie. Do any of these human characters show up again? And if so, who do you think is going to show up again?
I would guess no, unless Emiko and Ogata are back. Those are the two that I would bet on.
Cool.
Although I probably should be betting on some like military general or something, but that's not fun. So I'm gonna bet on the couple.
Sure. Okay. We'll see. All right. That's all I had. Well, yeah. Any closing general thoughts or anything about this?
No, it's really, really good, and it is. It's worth the watch, even if you're not planning to like get into a big old Godzilla movie marathon.
Yeah,
like it's just a really good movie.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think no matter what, you don't even if you have no intention of watching another good Godzilla movie in your entire life, if you don't even give a shit, I don't really know why you're listening to this podcast if that's the case. But if you don't give a shit about any Godzilla or kaiju stuff, I think as a standalone horror movie and a historical movie as well, I think this is just a really fantastic movie to watch, and it's just a good movie from the history of film, period. So
agreed.
Yes. Well, this is not the only podcast that we do, and it's not the only podcast on the collective that we're in, because if you'd like to find other queer creators who talk about media, you should check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com, and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky at Glitterjaw, and on Instagram at GlitterjawPods. But otherwise, where can we find you and everything you're working on, Doug?
Yeah, you can find me everywhere at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can listen to me on a podcast called Victory Road, where I talk about Pokemon, and you can listen to me on a Glitterjaw show called Novel Gaming that I do with my friend Katie, where we talk about all the books and video games we've been consuming lately.
All right, and you can find me at Twitter at Derek B. Gale. That's where I'm most active. You can also find me probably on other platforms at that same name, or at Dare Bear, Mr. Dare Bear. And you can also find the podcast that Doug and I do together, which is also a Glitterjaw show, which is Walloping Web Snappers, where we do deep dives into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. And you can find my other podcast, Gimmicks, where my co-host David and I look at the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking, gimmicky episodes of television. Of course, you can find all of his podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can also follow my Twitch at Mr. Dare Bear, where I stream VHS recordings of old television airings with the original commercials. If you would like to support Screonk, the best way to do that would probably be by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. It's obviously our Patreon for Walloping Web Snappers, but I think we will end up having some bonus Godzilla-related content there, and that'll just support us regardless for any of our podcasting endeavors that Doug and I do together. And you can check out our Walloping Web Snappers Discord that we'll link to in the show notes. I'm sure we will have some Godzilla conversations happening there as these episodes drop. We do have a specific email for Screonk, which is screonkpodcast@gmail.com. So feel free to email that, any of your questions or feedback or thoughts or corrections there. Of course, we're a new podcast, so please rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms just to help us out. And like I said, next month on the 13th, we are moving to 1 year later with the direct sequel, 1955's Godzilla Raids Again. See you then.
Bye.